Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, no complaints. We are at the end just about of preseason. I think tomorrow will be Saturday,
Yeah.
last preseason game.
Friday. I think Fridays. Yeah.
And then next Tuesday, we'll have two games. And then Wednesday, let the fun begins. Everybody will be here. David will have his screens going in his office, watching a million games at once, texting people, all sorts of fun stuff. It's exciting, right? It's good time of the year.
I mean, it's kind of already started, but yes, last night, my wife and I almost got through an entire episode of Only Murders in the Building, which we haven't watched in a few weeks. And my daughter ended up interrupting, but we almost got it before she interrupted. And then we only could watch one because game started. So it's really going to start, next week. It's a fun time.
Only Murders is only that's a short show. It's a half-hour show. It's not even an hour show.
I think so. Yeah. It's listen. We love New York City, so that part is good. And I was a huge Steve Martin fan forever. It's a cute story.
Oh, it's great.
It's something to hang out with my wife about. She likes it.
Yeah. Oh, I love the dynamic, of course, and the show's so meta because it makes fun of itself, and like the constant recurring joke of like Selena Gomez, this like young like starlet that's like hanging out with these 75-year-old men like who are her best friends. Like, it's hilarious.
I gotta believe that as a performer, I know very little about her at all.
Yeah.
I don't think she's particularly great on the show, although she's playing the kind of the deadpan.
Yeah.
With those two.
Yes. Right.
Not much of a choice.
Right. She's the straight man in that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But 100% right. But as I've said to you on the show before, imagine being an offensive lineman playing next to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
The amount, late in his career. Well, she's got 150 years of experience between those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she will be telling stories about them, and she'll be exhibiting lessons learned long after they're gone.
Oh yeah, and this is actually
and they have Meryl Streep's on the show every week.
Meryl Streep. It's a wonderful. They got Eva Longoria this year, Zach Galifianakis, Eugene Levy's on this year.
He's great.
It's a really fun New York show, and for Selena Gomez, this is actually this is different, like ranging for her, right? Because she does movies and other things, and this is I like this deadpan straight laced role for her because it's again it's showing her range, and then she's learning stuff from, as you mentioned, some of the comedic greats in Martin and Short.
Yeah.
Okay, David. The NBA has announced that they will be re-implementing a rule that was on the books apparently in the past that I didn't know about, but they're going to reinstate it. It has to do with cell phone usage by players and coaches. According to reports, the new rule is going to be that from 45 minutes before tip-off until after post-game media obligations are complete, players and coaches will not be allowed to use their cell phones. And the league has come out and said it's one of the ways that they're going to sort of maintain the integrity of the game to ensure that, gambling isn't taking place by players on their phones during games or things of that nature.
They didn't say that, right?
They didn't say the gambling part, but that is one of the reasons why. It's about the integrity of the game. So if the players are not posting things during games at halftime or whatever, trying to, again, maintain appearances, for lack of a better term, that nothing is going on here. I know you have intimate knowledge about this because you coach players in the league. They talk about it. I mean, coaches talk about it. What are your thoughts when you heard about this particular rule?
So I heard about it weeks ago, and right away called one of my players who got fucking mad.
Mm.
He the first thing he said is, "All right, well, I'm just gonna have you text." He's like, "I'm just bring my iPad in. You can text my iPad." I'm like, I don't think they'll allow that either. I said, it's not about me. I promise you, no one's worried about people like me, even if they know nothing about basketball.
Right.
They're not worried about that. This is about gambling. He's like, I don't have nothing to do with that. He's like, I gotta get information from you.
Right.
You can text one of my coaches. I said, yeah, that might be the way to do it. I don't know what their rules are. But then he started freaking out about, well, what about my music? This is one person. This was weeks ago. He's like, I got to hear my music before games. And so that was when I didn't even see the document, the thing you put in the document.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the league is saying. To me, there's no question it's about gambling.
Yeah.
And yet these guys want to hear their music, and you can't get them all to agree on anything. So they got to figure that out. That's a big deal.
Are they going to have monitors in there, like from the league, watching to see who's doing what?
Good question. So I did some research. I actually told Henry about this because I'm not a journalist. I can't investigate anything, but I can ask questions. So I sent probably 2 dozen texts, maybe not 2 dozen, maybe about 18 texts yesterday to players who I thought may know something, because some young guys they're way out of it. They're swimming for survival right now if you're a rookie or whatever. And so one of the guys I texted said, I've been to those NBPA meetings. This is what he wrote to me, that every team has to police it their own way.
Right.
So whatever that means.
Right.
Which means to me it's an ongoing situation.
Yeah.
So Henry's our top guy's on it.
Yeah.
Our top guy's on it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I'm all for the integrity of the game.
Of course.
I'm also all for the fact that I know some guys are on Twitter at halftime.
Yeah, for sure.
And that bothers me. As a purist of the game, that bothers me. I don't think they're gambling or anything like that. The players I know individually, because I hear them talking in post-game conferences sometimes, where they'll mention they saw some at halftime when they're interviewed, whatever. I don't love that. So I'm all for policing that. But by all means, they should get on their music. They want to text their mom. I don't care about that.
Right.
They do. There's things they can do. They got to figure out what to do exactly.
So it seems, David, that since it's going to be up to each team individually, the rules are going to vary far and wide about who monitors what, right? You might have a team that's like, look, just don't post shit during the game, please. And if you do that, I don't care if you're on your right. And I think that might be a way some teams go. It's interesting because you're trying to curb behavior that occurs every day in society. Like you're in an office and there's a board meeting or whatever. You know, people are looking down at their phones in the middle of these meetings. Like it's just what people do. So I just don't know, again, how effective this policing is going to be. And it's going to vary based on, what's going to eventually happen is that some young, or not even young, because as David often likes to say, there's no such thing as rookie mistakes. It's just mistakes. Somebody is going to post something during a game and forget that, oh shit, I wasn't supposed to. And then it might lead to a thing. And then Adam's going to have to talk about it and become a whole, we told you guys, no one's supposed to be on their phones during the games, right? So I think that's much my guess of where it's likely going to head down that road.
Yeah. I mean, we all saw this coming when they first got in bed with gambling.
Yeah.
We're the NBA as a species. We're in bed with some pretty nefarious, sinister organizations and ideas, Abu Dhabi and whatever, Saudi money and gambling.
Hell,
and all
our owners, like the Miriam Adelson, and come on,
right. So, this is you've got this gigantic. You remember those little gags you can get where you open up a can of like a fake snake comes out. Well, the snake's out. Not so easy to get it back in.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do. And I'm glad they're trying to do it. They want to walk a fine line. The NBA is a monolith. They don't walk fine lines great.
Nope.
And so I'm rooting for them. And I'm all for having to figure stuff out and let's make mistakes and get better at it. And as opposed to ignoring it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad for that. I don't know if something's happened to make them think something is going on at halftime with betting lines or whatever.
Yeah.
I got to believe they're monitoring all of that.
Yeah.
And to your point, which I think is a terrific point, we're going to have a very diverse set of reactions. I would guess the Miami Heat are going to be more on the conservative side.
Probably.
With Pat Riley and Spo and the same with Sam Presti, who is very tightly wound like the Spurs used to be, which I don't think they are anymore. I think as Pop has drank more wine, they've got to loosen up some. Just kidding. But it used to be that everything was in-house.
Right.
And then some teams where the GM's just hoping to keep a job for another week. He ain't worried about the other stuff. So you're going to see an interesting pendulum.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad, I don't know who broke the story, but I'm glad it's out. We didn't break it.
Yeah.
But I was told weeks ago, an agent called me to say, hey, my guys are going to have a problem because they like texting with you right before games or whatever. So,
and that's the other piece of this, right? David texts his players halftime, right? And observations of what he's seeing, right? Things that
I don't want to.
but you do because you're like,
they ask me to,
right,
yeah.
Right. You're like, hey, we work the things that we work on all summer. It's like, oh, when this came, what were you thinking? Like,
So
things
I'll
that
give you an
they need
example.
feedback.
I'll give you an example. I'll have a player again. Jarod, I mean this sincerely. I don't want to ever do it. When I first was told by the agent of this rule change, I yelled that I was home alone. I yelled at a loud cheer because I feel pressure.
Right.
I have enough pressure in my
Right.
life, like anyone. We all do in our worlds. But to have to make sure I catch a game live, and I have a lot of games going on, and be able to give them nuggets of wisdom.
Mhm.
I hold myself accountable to a good standard. There's pressure there, but now I don't have to worry about it. I could watch 3 episodes of Only Murders and then watch things with fast forwarding
Right.
and be able to see the right. Because my guys do like to see when the game's over, they do their media, they open their phones.
Right.
Coach said, "Good job," or "Hey, you struggled on this, but I like this."
Mhm.
That's the merry-go-round.
Yep.
I just help them stay on that merry-go-round because they will. If they go 0 for 5 from 3, they're in the pit of despair. And so I try to be a voice of, hey, but you set that huge screen late. You had 3
Right.
steals, whatever. And so I want to finish the game by the time the game's over, but I can fast forward through commercials,
Right.
which is a good percentage of, and free throws.
Mhm.
So I was thrilled. That being said, my players have not reacted great to this because what you said,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find something for
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
Not all of them, by the way. And they have
Yep.
to ask me. I don't advertise it. None of my
Yep.
players are watching this. I don't advertise anything, but they'll say, Coach, can you just, Lua Deng's the first one to do it. Like, I'm just sitting here wondering what the fuck you see because none of these fucking coaches are talking to me at all. They're all long retired. And so I'm like, I guess I'll do that because I
Yeah.
really wanted to respect the sanctity of the locker room.
Of course. Of course.
That's why you'll never hear me talk about what guys are saying in the locker
Nope.
room. And I know what they're saying in the locker room.
Sure do.
It's not my place to report that. That's their life and their business. And I've said the same to my son since he was 12 years old. But I'm sure other people do the same thing. I know players, business managers have told me they don't know shit about basketball, and they're texting players. Now, I don't love that because we need to kind of narrow the amount of voices trying to influence our guys.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to the players like, Coach, I don't read what they send, during the game, whatever. Wife might be sending grocery lists. Hey, can you pick something up on the way home?
Friends might be like, hey, you let so-and-so cross you over to whatever. Like, what happened?
Right. I didn't even think about that. Of course, you're right. So the NBA is trying to tackle a really large beast. I don't know how they'll do it. They're not good at stuff like that. It bears watching. I think that's the most important thing. Let's pay attention.
Yeah.
Because to your point, too, better to do something now and stay on it now and avoid potentially a really terrible scandal of finding out that players were communicating, managing lines or whatever.
Right.
Let's stay on it. And that means if teams are going to be held responsible, which this might be what that is, by the way, is now you're responsible.
Right.
So if we find out one of your players is texting at halftime, a bookie or gambling, because you can do it yourself.
Right. That's on you.
We're going to fine you $18 million.
Right.
I can see that being a warning sign of, hey, this is on you guys to do.
Well, it's sort of, as you mentioned, the snake's out of the jar, right? The horse is already long out the barn, right? Look, they already took the gambling money, right? We're already in bed with these people, so can't go back now. And so now they're trying to course correct after the fact, right? And some of this, I'm sure, has to do with the Jonte Porter betting scandal, right, from last season.
Henry suspected that as well. I have no idea, but it's a fair suspicion.
And look, the reason why the Jonte Porter betting scandal didn't really garner the talking head conversation
because he wasn't nobody.
It's because it's Jonte Porter. Exactly right.
Right. Michael Porter Jr.
Well, now that's something different, right? And that's NBA's biggest fear is that some popular person that everyone knows gets caught up in this. Now we got a problem, right? And so they're going to have to they're doing all the things that they can now to be like, look, see, we're policing. And it's like, guys, you already went down this road, my friends, with this sports betting. So whatever happens as a result, right? Even with your quote unquote best intentions, you can't be like, oh, well, we didn't. Like, no, like once you started this, anything could possibly happen, right? It's unintended consequences. And that can go in a million different directions. And I want to be clear. David and I hope it doesn't. We don't want anything like this to actually happen. But to act naive, like, oh, that's silly to think that nothing could happen.
Right. Well, think of just human nature. Think of a country, that has governments and laws and all that. We don't pass legislation for no reason. There's a reason why you regulate industry. As much as Republicans don't want you to do it, there's a reason why they don't want you to do it, and we're doing it to protect. They're starting this process for a reason. They know that human beings are fragile, unpredictable,
fallible, all of it.
Very much the case. Very, very. Our players are already stressed. There's lots of reasons why they might make a mistake, and to your point, it may not. It probably the odds are it's not going to be a peripheral player. The 450 or so players, a good. I don't know. Think of 30 teams times 8. That's 240. Are rotation players every game.
Right.
So that's more than half the league. The odds are someone going to be that you're watching in your fantasy league, whatever, is gonna just make a mistake, or 2 or 3 or 4. The league trying to get out in front of it, great. I just don't think the league is good at that kind of stuff.
No.
And I'm worried about that. But at least they've shot a bullet, a missile across the bow of, hey, we're watching. We're paying attention.
No, 100%. All right, moving on to basketball on the floor. We mentioned preseason will wrap tomorrow. David's been keeping his eye on the preseason and some players who he's talked about wanting to see if they can make some moves. He's seen some things in preseason already, which gets him excited. He had an article come out, 5 players and their what ifs, right? What he thinks about them actually happens, and what if he's seeing in the preseason turns itself into regular season success? We could be cooking with grease in some cases. So everybody should be subscribe to True Hoop so they can take a look at that. I want to talk about Jaden Ivey because he's someone you were and still remain very high on. And if he can show, and again, look, small sample size, 4 games in the preseason, we know. But if that means he is trajecting in the right direction and going to make a jump this year, it could be good things for the Detroit Pistons. What are you seeing in the small sample size of preseason from Jaden Ivey?
It started with last year. He was, so as a rookie, he was I believe you can look this up.
He's one of the worst players in the NBA, if not the worst.
I think he was in percentile 1. Yeah. Last year, middle of the pack.
Which is huge.
On a bad team.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I look for. I've got red flags when the team is ascending and the player is descending.
Yep.
And I have the opposite of that when the team is crashing and burning. But this guy is kind of finding a way to fly a little bit. Just be average. If you're an average NBA player, you're making over $10 million a year.
Yep.
That's just the reality of the business. There's not many guys like that. So I thought he made real progress, and he wasn't shooting great, which is important because that would just jack up his numbers even more. So he's been amazing in the preseason. And again, just preseason. No one's predicting he's going to continue to do it. But he doesn't have to. He's 22. I think he's like 22 years old.
Yes.
He's very young. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's close. I don't remember. I wrote in the article. I forgot already because I'm an old man. I love him next to Cade. I really like combinations. I'll say this publicly now. I'm thinking about a book called The Basketball Sommelier.
Oh.
I don't know what's going to come of it, but it's very much part of what I have to do. Is when I look at what a player is, I'm evaluating a player. I'm getting hints of Desmond Bain and notes of this. That's how my brain thinks of stuff like that. But also in the wine world, as you probably know better than I do, you're a fancy guy that way. I'm just a ball coach. I didn't live in San Fran or New York City or anything like that. I'm just a country bumpkin dodging hurricanes, Jarod. But a big part of wine is the way it complements your food. Okay. So in roster construction, it isn't just about acquiring all the best players. It's a chemistry experiment.
Correct.
So I like the Cunningham, more slow, methodical, tall point guard with super uber explosive Dwayne Wade-ish Jaden Ivey.
Yeah.
Who also is an underrated passer. Always has been. His assist rate 2 years ago was actually really good, despite being a bad player. He can play make some. His mom's a college coach. She's coaching Notre Dame.
Yeah. And you love that. You love sons of coaches.
Fuck yeah. They're just born to understand the game better. Sure, his mom is crazy smart about basketball. So boy, if he can be another playmaker next to Cade, where Cade can play off the ball some and bully guys, I think that's a big deal. If you get a small guy in Cade, he can bully. Get a taller guy in Jade, he can blow by him. Good combination. We'll see how their small forwards work out. They have Asar Thompson. They have Ron Holland they just drafted. Down the road, they could acquire someone else. Yeah, I really like that combination. And Ivy looks stronger physically. I've not seen him in person, but just on TV. And his stroke looks beautiful and easy, repeatable, super explosive, still off the dribble. Man, if they could, Detroit's having a resurgence as a city.
Yeah.
Which makes me very happy as someone who's got some dear friends who are from Detroit, and some of them still live there. The Tigers were great this year. The Lions, I think, are good. I don't follow football much, but I think they're good. And if the Pistons have a backcourt, 2 top 5 picks that look like they're players, that's it. Like, I think I even wrote in the article, I think I quoted you. I think I did. Yeah.
60, 50, and 88 are shooting splits in the again, small sample size, but still, that is, that's progress. And if we're, again, to David's point, the shot, as he said, looks repeatable. That's probably one of the main things. If your shot is repeatable, that's probably a good sign, right? Like, okay.
It's a simple, So by repeatable, here's what I mean by that. So some guys like, let's say, Joe Ingles, have a kind of a weird, funky shot, like a Jim Furyk golf swing. He can repeat that swing.
Correct.
You can't. I can't. 99.9% of people of all time couldn't do it. He just is ridiculously gifted, as is Ingles. It's the less movement kind of three is what you want. And I think Jaden, with that kind of body and the live wire legs, it's hard to coordinate all that sometimes. But it looks like he's got it. And he doesn't shoot that good. He can just shoot, be better. Last year, I think 2 straight years at 35+%. It's not terrible.
Right, yeah.
He wasn't at 30.
Right.
But you get to 30 to 40 with that kind of athleticism. If Cade can also make steps, which I don't know if he can, but if he can, and now he's got gravity, that's really good for Ivy.
He's 33% from 3 last year. If he gets himself to 36, 37%, that is big time.
He was 33 last year? Okay.
And he's 22, as you mentioned.
22. Okay.
The Pistons famously had one of the great backcourts of all time in Thomas and Dumars. I ain't saying this is that, but if they can get themselves to a point where you're like, Cade realizes his potential, Ivy's realizing his potential, there could be happy times again in Detroit. And we talked about Thompson, who we both like a lot. Like, there's things to be excited about. I also think that, and this is not to dump on Monty, but to have Monty gone and to have JB there, who really helped Cleveland with their young guys kind of find themselves. So he might be that type of coach who's really good getting young guys to rally around and defend and do all the things they need to do to win possessions. You could have a sign of some good things happening in Detroit. Long way to go, but good things to see there. Another player who you always high on, and we thought his problem was he was being asked to do too much as a young player with very little experience, was James Wiseman. And now Indiana's like, we don't want you to do any of that shit. We make the game real simple for you. And he's excelling at that. And if he can, because he's going to back up, of course, but if he can do that in a secondary role to Miles Turner, I think maybe he can start realizing his potential too.
I was talking to a Pacers player about him. I don't remember. It might have been yesterday. And he's got enormous talent. Everyone who has ever played with him, because I've talked to teammates from the Warriors who said this, I don't think he processes super fast, in part because I just don't think he has. It's like asking a really smart math kid to go from pre-algebra to calculus. They're going to fail. They may have a great brain, but they just don't have enough of the meat, the fundamentals. And so James just doesn't have it. And so I think part of his processing problem is he just hasn't played a whole lot. I think he's been ignored since he left Golden State, and it was all too overwhelming when he was at Golden State. So, yeah, slow it down. I think they give him a lot of chances. He's got to be a rim protector for them. He's not been in the playoffs in the preseason. He is in practice, I'm told, by multiple people. He had a great dunk the other day off of no pick and roll. He's got the ability to play off the glass defensively and on the offensive boards to really help them. He's the opposite of Miles Turner. He can really dominate around the rim. It shouldn't mess around much in the perimeter. And as I wrote, if Siakam continues to shoot, he's had a good preseason. He had 39% from the Pacers from 3. Toppin's a very good shooter and improved offensively overall. I love their power forwards next to James. The Pacers might have their long-term answer if they lose Miles because they can't afford to pay everybody.
Right.
But they can't, they won't.
They won't. Right.
They could pay the luxury tax, but I guess Simon won't ever do it. Yeah. So yeah, he could really help anchor what can be the best bench in the league again.
David, James Wiseman is such an example of what you talk about all the time, where a situation matters to how a player develops. Here's a guy who, what did he play? 3 games of college basketball? 2.5. He got pulled off, I think, at halftime in a game with whatever was going on there. And then he goes to Golden State, which is one of the more complex offenses to play in as a rookie things are already moving 1 million miles a minute. Over there, it's like 10 million miles a minute.
And defensive challenge, too, because they have sophisticated defense.
Correct. So, so you're not working out, so you get dumped in the bench, you get hurt, you go to the G League, it's just not, and you bounce around after that for a little bit. I mean, God, it probably would have been better for him to go somewhere like, I don't know, Orlando, where he could have just played under low stakes and just gotten his lumps and learned, right? Instead of had he gone to a place like Orlando, would he be in a much different place today than had he gone to Golden State?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this before, and it's going to sound self-serving. I promise you it's not. There's a real good point here because it doesn't take any genius from my part to do what I'm going to tell you. I had a dad call me years ago, not that long ago, but it was definitely more than a year ago. His son was a rookie. He's playing in the middle of America. They were not American. And the dad called me one day, a few months into the season, and he said, Coach Thorpe, I love you. I said, he's a really gregarious guy. I said, oh, that's sweet. I love you too. He's like, no. He's like, I was talking to my wife. We really love you. I said, well, what'd I do? He said, because our son is in the middle of your country, a foreign country, and he's on his own. He's in his early 20s. No one talks to him. He's coached during practice, and that's it. He has friends on the team, whatever, but no one's talking to him. No one's teaching him and guiding him. It is every man for himself. And he's got you. And he tells us when we ask him questions, Coach Thorpe says this, Coach Thorpe says this. He says, so we love you. And I, of course, realized long ago that that's why I needed to build this business. But it's too bad. It is what it is, and I don't think it's ever going to change.
No.
So I tell you that for a reason. I was talking to one of his coaches in Memphis back when he was still at Memphis, who raved about James Wiseman, raved about him, his intelligence, his sweetness, his ability to connect with people, despite being this gigantic man. He is gigantic.
And still young man.
By the way. Right. Yeah, what, he's 22 now? What is he, 23 maybe?
Yeah.
And he just got thrown into the Golden State Warriors. And it's an amazing franchise, has been an amazing franchise. We'll see how it is going forward. But that is just not something teams are good at. Most people aren't good at player development or people development. There are books written about the companies that are good at human development. And they're writing about those companies because they're doing really well because they're developing their talent. That is not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. And so the NBA is no different. They're great at what they do in theory, but this is a separate thing from that in their minds. And they're not very good at it. So Indiana now has the opportunity to change the course of this guy's career. He's got to put a lot of pressure on himself, but there's the opportunities there.
Yeah.
The guy I feel bad for is Isaiah Jackson, who I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
But he just isn't the physical specimen Wiseman is.
Yeah.
And they got rid of Jalen Smith. I think Isaiah was excited. Now they got Wiseman. They're going to give him chances. If he doesn't make it, he's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no guarantee.
No, none.
There's no guarantee. He got killed by Zach Edey. So did Miles Turner, by the way. No, they didn't do anything to thwart the Edey onslaught because it's season.
Right.
And so as I reminded a player on their team, listen, Joel Embiid is not very good against double teams. Only more recently has he been. Had you guys done that to Edey, who knows what he would have done. And they will in the regular season if he's able to score one-on-one, which he's enormous. It's like playing in a driveway against nobody. He's so big. So Wiseman got outplayed, I thought. Although he did some good things too, but I thought he got outplayed pretty good. Again, so did Miles Turner, who's a legitimate player. But the Pacers, boy, if they can get him, to be an ace rebounder and rim protector and dunker. That's all they need.
That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah, they've got a good situation.
And to be clear, just to do those three things is very difficult. I don't want to make it seem like it's easy.
Yeah.
Just to do that, right?
No,
it's really hard just to do that.
Yeah.
But if he can, again, he has so much talent and skill. Forget about all that. If you can focus on getting really good at these things, look out.
Yeah.
Again, everybody read the article. Last player I want to talk about, because he's on the Grizzlies and I love the Grizzlies, is Desmond Bane. And you asked in the article, what if he regains his all-star caliber form, which I think he most certainly can. Look, this is a team that brings back an all-NBA player in John Morant, who played 8 games last year, 9. So if he plays and Bane plays at his level, Triple J plays at his level, again, this is a team that was a 2 seed 2 years ago, right? So let's not act like, this team's no good. But what do you like specifically about what you've seen from Desmond Bane?
Well, he cooked Ben Mathurin really badly, which isn't anything. Mathurin struggled defensively in his career so far. I thought he looked better off the dribble than I remembered seeing. And I know
Downhill
Desmond Bane's played back. He's played backup point guard, so it's not like he can't dribble. But I thought he looked pretty elusive with the ball, downhill driving, finishing. Made a really tough right-hand finish outside the paint. That was impressive. He can really shoot. Tough guy. Also a nice compliment to Ja, offensively anyway. The super slinky, super explosive Ja Morant, not a great shooter, with the very strong, powerfully built, elite shooting Desmond Bane. That's a nice combination.
I agree.
And you factor in Triple J. So when you think about chemistry, they're not great defenders. Bane is average.
Right.
Morant has not been, although he can be.
Right.
But they got the best defensive player, one of the best in the world, and that kind of makes it all worthwhile.
And if and he's hurt right now, so I think I'm not sure where he's gonna be for the start of the season, but not Gigi Jackson, excuse me, Vince Williams Jr.
Yeah, I love
He played
him.
excellent.
I love both.
Classic 3-and-D kind of guy. If he is back to what he was doing last year for them defensively and hitting threes, you could put out a nice lineup now with Bane, Triple J, Vince, right? And we got defense, we got the shooting. Like, you can really do some stuff. So we'll see. I'm excited, David, for Memphis. I think Memphis has a chance to be good this year.
Well, we could talk about Edie too real quickly.
Yeah.
Edie is tall enough and skilled enough where if you let him get to his left shoulder, right hand jump hook in the paint, he made a bunch of them. He got a real soft touch, whatever. Isaiah Jackson cut that middle off, and Edie did the exact counter, drop step, power dunk. Like, he's pretty good. He's good with that. I am not sure he'll be able to defend the way they want him to and drop coverage for a while.
Right.
I'm also not sure how he'll deal with the stunts and traps that teams will spring on him in those situations. But as someone who thought it should have been a second-round pick, he looked like a first-round pick to me in the game, but it's preseason.
Yep.
And so I started the article with an agent telling me, I don't care about preseason. One agent told me I didn't even watch preseason. Another agent that I deal with a lot called me yesterday from Africa. He's not even watching the games right now because he's in a foreign country, whatever. That being said, you'd rather play well in preseason than suck.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
And so Zach hasn't sucked. And so, Memphis, they need a Steven Adams type to play next to Triple J. For sure. I don't think he's there quite yet, but he can get there. He can get there.
David, last thing, because you mentioned Edie. Sometimes I feel, again, I always say this because the rim is 10 feet above the ground. Sometimes being big helps, right? And matters. He's a rookie, so he's got a lot to learn. But how can Zach use just being big to help the Grizzlies right now?
Okay, so I'll give you a couple of things. First of all, just when you said that, I growing up as a dad with my son, he would struggle to make shots around the rim because he was tiny. And his teammates, when they were 6'4", and he was still 5'2" in 7th grade, or the opponents who were 6'6", 6'7" in 7th grade, the ball just has to travel a lot less. If you wad up remember the old Dixie cups, wad up a piece of paper, Dixie cup. If you put the trash can right next to you, you're not going to miss much.
No. Put
it across the room a little bit, much harder to make. You might hit the rim a little bit, it's going to bounce out much more often. Basketball is the same principle, It's just physics. So just having touch, it's really just a matter of knowing how to shoot the ball when you're that close to the rim. Where it really helps is offensively. If you understand, and this is where I think Purdue's done a good job, the fundamentals of sealing, posting and sealing and rolling and having hands, super not easy to do is have hands. You got to be able to catch the ball. It's a real gift to be able to catch anything, including loose balls and stuff, pick them up off the ground, zoof them off the glass. AD made a play this week where he contested the guard driving down, contested the shot, took away the lob, contested the shot, and then quickly just turned around, jumped in the air against whoever it was, and just got a two-hand rebound very easily, arms fully extended. Like, he made it look like anyone could do it. No, it's really hard. It shouldn't be necessarily, but it is. To contest, land, turn, jump, grab, arms extended. It's different to grab it here, arms up here. He made it look easy because he's freaking Anthony Davis. But a lot of college guys can't do it. Zach Edey's good at stuff like that because he's been fundamentally trained, in my opinion, for a long time. So understanding that kind of thing, creating mismatches with your good screens, your footwork required. If you have the good footwork and don't have the body, it doesn't matter. He has the body. He has the size. So that footwork matters. And then defensively, it's just huge.
Yeah.
So people went at him and scored some, but they didn't always score. I don't know how good he's going to be deflecting at the rim. That's something to watch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, folks, we'll be back after a brief commercial break. All right, David, we had a feel-good story in the NBA last night.
Oh, yeah.
Lonzo Ball, who has not played basketball. Am I right in saying 3 years? It's definitely been 2.
I think it was 27.
Okay.
27 years.
Okay.
That's what it seemed.
30 years. Maybe 30 years.
That's what it seemed like. It seemed like it was a lifetime ago. I loved him so much coming out of UCLA.
Yes.
Loved his game. I don't remember seeing him. It's been so long.
Point being, it's been a long time since we've seen him play.
Yeah, it's been like 3 years.
Forget about what he did in the game. The fact that he was able to get on the court, David, and I think he played 12 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I was just so happy for this young man, and he's not an old dude. He's still a young man.
I'm gonna guess. Is he 26?
Yeah, that's my guess. I'm gonna pull him up right now.
Yes, I have no idea if I'm right.
All right, he played 15 minutes, and he is 26 years old. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Not even 27 yet. Like he hit his first threes. Of course, everybody went crazy. Like
first 2 threes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just nice to see, David. And look, I don't know how he's going to hold up. I know for sure he is not playing any back-to-backs. That is a factual statement. May not ever play back-to-backs.
Have they said that, or you're just guessing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he may not play any the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Which fine by me, because we already think there's too many games in this season anyway.
And when I think of Lonzo Ball, if you take away the dad thing, which is happily not even a factor anymore, super fast. Like he was Jason Kidd. He was Jason Kidd, who also couldn't shoot,
but learned to shoot quicker than Jason Kidd learned to shoot.
For sure. But he learned also. Jason Kidd, obviously. When he retired, I think he was number 1 3-point shooter of all time in terms of made threes. Ball was so gifted as a passer, so fast, great hands, willing passer, not just a gift one, a willing one. I did not see that last night at all. I saw a guy took a couple threes, made a couple buckets, cutting, nothing off the dribble. Didn't even take a shot off the dribble. It's going to be a work in progress.
Of course.
I don't know if he ever gets to be an impactful player, but certainly great to the will. I've talked to players in college who ended up retiring because they just got hurt a lot, and it just was, they were sick of the rehab. Yeah. So this guy's been doing nothing but that for 1,000 days or whatever it is.
Brutal.
So yeah, it was great to see it.
Yeah, I was just happy to see that from Lonzo. And yeah, so last time he played was 2022, and he only played 35 games that year. So yeah, it's been a while. David, you mentioned he is a gifted, willing passer. He's also a great defender. But what does being off from playing that type of basketball for 3 years do to you? So there's the rehab part, which we know. Now the part which you know, which is the player development. Is it almost like learning to walk again? Like, all right, here's how you learn to dribble. Here's how you do this.
The only experience I have in that format was when I left coaching and started doing individual coaching. And 2 years later, I was asked to work 5-star camp as a coach. And man, my synapses were just way off. Every coach is different. I was one of those guys that I can just think super fast as a coach and change things up all the time and react really well. It doesn't mean I'm better than someone else because they might be more methodical, but their stuff is really good. And
Right.
I lose patience with that practice. I'm moving on to the next drill. Some guys just nope, we're staying with it. We master it, and it's fine for them. Boy, I sucked. I felt it took me 3 or 4 games minimum for me to feel like I was even moving in the right direction again. Everything, my words got stuck in my mouth. I just was saying and coaching things I haven't been doing in 2 years because I've been doing individual coaching only. It's so I know with a player it's similar. It's not quite there. It's what to say. It's almost like when you're speaking a second language, you can't quite come up with a word, but you know what you want to say. You just can't say it. And so to me, that's probably where Lonzo struggles some is even if he physically can go by someone off the dribble, he's not comfortable. It's the game's too fast. It's going to take some time. Yeah. And luckily for him, the Bulls shouldn't care.
Right, because they stink.
They're not going to win a bunch anyway. I mean, they're going to win. They're not terrible, but they're not good. So, yeah, just play them and let them get up to speed and see what you got.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. They played the Timberwolves last night, and everyone knows that Timberwolves had a big trade this year. They sent Karl-Anthony Towns to the Knicks. Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle came back in that trade. Did you see Julius Randle last night? What did you think of his play in the preseason?
He looked like Julius Randle to me. He just they let him play in space, bully people. He had a couple of really nice drives. He's not going to serve the same role as Karl-Anthony Towns in the same way, but he'll more or less be just another guy that can solve some offensive problems for them. But they were not a great offensive team last year.
Correct.
If my memory serves, they were like 17th or something.
Even with Cat, which was kind of surprising actually when I look back to it.
Yeah. So Conley didn't do anything last night. I still think that's the answer at point guard.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to work out fine. I've always loved him. I think he's going to carry himself great. I think he's going to partner with Rudy great. They proved they can win without Cat something last year. And I think he's going to give them a little more offensive punch even than Cat did. I think he's better as a passer. He's just different. But the spacing is going to be different. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be outside in as much as Cat was.
Yeah, for sure. Philadelphia 76ers are an interesting team. Kelly Oubre Jr. is an interesting player. He had some comments recently. It was captured by Keith Pompey, the great Sixers beat writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And this is Kelly Oubre Jr. talking about himself and his role in Philadelphia. The one thing I do is I'm going to always be myself. I know that I have to play a role. I don't consider myself a role player. I just consider myself as that extra piece. So I just try to flow. I want to be one of those guys, of course. So I want to show the fit well. And with any of those guys that I'm put in the lineup with. And the article is about Kelly Oubre Jr. trying to be water while playing within the flow of each game. Interesting comments by Mr. Oubre Jr., who, he's an interesting player because he's uber talented, clearly. But he's often, you'll see plays sometimes where you're like, what? And it doesn't happen as much now that he's older, but you're like, what were you thinking there? That's what I love to ask him. What were you thinking here? And it's probably this idea of like, I think I'm like one of these guys, like who's really good. And like, he is super talented, but on this team with Maxey and Embiid and Paul George, it's going to be about him filling a role. And I think that's one of the challenges, David, right? For players who have lots of tools in their little toolbox, but it's like, hey man, I don't need you to use the split level wall. No. I need you to use the hammer, the screwdriver, and the level. That's it. Nothing else. And it's hard, right, to kind of get guys to buy into that when they're like, but I can do so much more.
It can be really hard. This is what I have to do all the time for players is how do we get on the court? What does it take to get on the court? How do we stick on the court? How do we increase our rotation minutes? How do we break in the starting lineup? Then how do we ascend from there? You got to start somewhere. And I appreciate very much what Oubre said, very much. Because sometimes you have to just take a backseat to what you most want to do and do what you have to do, or you're not going to get a chance to play at all. It's just the hierarchy of the league. PG and Maxey and Embiid get to eat first.
All the food.
They're a secretary. They got to eat first. So find a way to impact winning without having the ball in your hands a bunch, except for as a finisher. Be a connector is one of my favorite words. that people are starting to use a lot now is the connector. You could be connecting on both ends. I love offensive connectors. He can be a finisher, but he's also got to be a connector and not don't stop the flow. That's what we talk. That's why we talk about flow. I was talking to a player yesterday about a teammate of his who's a high level scorer off the bench, but stops the flow. He's just always wanting to dribble an ISO and jab, jab, jab. Meanwhile, they like to play faster, as most teams do. And so yeah, you have to just monitor that and recognize, okay, I'm going to check my ego here and do these things on both ends. Don't suck on defense. Don't fuck the offense up. You've seen that guy on he's very annoying on Instagram. The don't fuck it up cook guy. That's pretty much how pro coaches are looking. Players don't fuck it up. Full offense here, don't fuck it up.
Oubre, and the thing is, defensively, he can be very good. He can shoot the ball, right? So you mentioned being a connector, right? So I know what you mean, but walk us through an example of being a connector defensively and then being a connector offensively, particularly for someone like Oubre on that team.
All right. I think the best way to put it would be, okay, here's Paul George over here, and there's Embiid over there, and there's Maxey over here, and I'm between all of them, and I can get the ball and get it to the next guy. I'm connecting them together. I could do it via screen where they can play with each other. They're both better than me. I could do it via pass. I could do it via a violent cut, which may draw Embiid's guy to come over, or Maxey's guy to come over, and now they're more open. Those are all connective things. I talk about connective tissue. That's the way to do it. As opposed to PG wants to get a ball to Embiid or Maxey, but he throws it to me and the ball stops with me. Well, now I'm not connecting anyone with me and PG, but that's not the best result for them. That doesn't mean I can't be a finisher. You can be a finisher. That's the point. I was talking to a player recently about one of his young teammates. This guy's a starter. He's got a young teammate who can really shoot. We think he's young and doesn't dribble much. I said, yeah, beat Klay Thompson. Score 40 points on 4 dribbles. like that's the, and he's like, oh man, I love that. He's a young guy. That's the goal. And so on that team, Kelly, just be a finisher. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
For that team, especially. Just be a finisher. And defensively, it's more of helping guys all the time. I'm going to help you in the post by pinching in or doubling. If there's a drive, I'm going to be right there and rotate back. And I'm just able to kind of stop problems. But offensively, that connector idea, I heard the Warriors announcers talk about Looney that way. And he is it's a great one. He's a great connector. A lot of teams are using bigs to do that. I think that's no small thing. In fact, I think in that game, Looney had 6 assists. So he was connecting a lot. But there's a lot of teams that like to use their big men as like kind of the fulcrum as the ball's changing from first side, second side, third side, which is right side, right side, or left side, right side, left side. First side, second side, third side, same idea. You're trying to move the defense, spread it out. You want to spread it out vertically with your pace, spread it horizontally with your movement, player and ball movement and screening and so forth. And it takes connectors. So otherwise, it's just Luka. Right? But there's only one Luka. Right. So teams that don't have a Luka on their team, which is everybody pretty much. Obviously, Edwards is an exception. Halliburton, LeBron, there's a few. You have to have connectors. And even Steph Curry needs connectors because he can't just beat you off the dribble all the time and dominate you physically. You need connectors to get him open. And, DHO. So run a DHO, and Looney's going to find Curry, right? Draymond Green, even better, going to find Curry. Used to be Clay as well. So Şengün is a scorer, but he's also a connector. Such a good passer. Jokic, this is why he's the best. He's unguardable one-on-one and also the best connector in the league. That's a hell of a combination. You know when I say that? He's got, 3 MVPs now? There you go. Scorer and connector, that's the ideal right there.
And a player like Oubre who can do those things you're talking about, the superstar players on your team love to play with guys like that, right? They're like, yeah, coach, this guy's got to play all the time. I want my minutes got to be lined up with that guy's minutes. I want to be on the floor with him.
It is something players talk about a lot is who am I on the court with? It's not fun playing with good guys that can score decently, but don't want to share the ball. It's not fun. Basketball is more fun when it's Jazz.
It's more fun when everybody can touch the ball and play along.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back next week. Monday will be the day before the season begins, and then we're full of go. So we are excited. Everyone take care, and we'll see you next week.